So, welcome to Here to Talk, and I'm Chrissie. We're here, of course, with our subtitle, The One Stop Shop for Getting Unstuck. And in the last set of 6 interviews we did earlier this year, again, everybody had something or other to bring to the table in ways of getting unstuck. And my guests this time will be just the same. They either have been very stuck or help others to get unstuck. Now, I'm very pleased to welcome Taran Manzone, and I'm going to let her tell the story, really, because that's what we're here for. But I will just tell you, she's 37 years old, and she has a 15-year-old daughter, and she's just got married. But that's all the good news. So, Taran, very welcome you are. Can you just talk to me about, I think, probably your early days, your childhood? I think that's quite interesting to how you got into the situation you did.
Hi, good afternoon, Chrissy. I had a very sheltered childhood. I grew up in a single parent home, my mother being the single parent. I have two siblings, I'm the middle child. Ugh, I don't have any recollection of ever lacking anything growing up. Um, I did struggle to make friends at school. I went to three different primary schools. So whenever I moved, that change, having to adapt to different friendships and a culture at the school, I think that affected me. It's one of the things that has come up many times over my adulthood. How these things have affected me. I used to think about it often. So not having friends for long periods, maybe a year, and then having to change a school and having to fit in and always needing to fit in, was something that stuck out in my entire childhood.
Was that,
When
yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, was that in many places across South Africa or
Yes,
did,
I
or
went
just
to
in?
two. No, I went to two different schools in Cape Town, and then my mother received a promotion, and we moved to Johannesburg. So when we moved to Johannesburg, like everything is totally different. The fashion is different, friendships are different. The way of living is different there. So having to fit in there, that sticks out in my childhood mostly. We were
Yeah.
there for about 4 years, and then we had to move back to Cape Town. And well, then that was another adjustment. It was a huge adjustment. I started high school, and I was living by my grandma at the time, so there was a lot of loneliness that went on, and I was a teenager, so all these changes and having to adapt was a bit overwhelming for me at that time.
You're really saying you found it difficult to get in with a new set of people, to meet new friends with that move to Cape Town. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And yet I suspect you're not a person you're quite gregarious, you meet people easily, but at that stage in your life it wasn't easy, was it?
No, it was not easy.
Okay, so how old were you then? What age are we talking about?
I was 13. I was going to be 14 that year, but I was 13. I think one of the things that affected me was the fact that my mother had to finish work in Johannesburg, and I had to move down alone for the first 6 months, um, and start this whole new journey of high school. And I felt quite lonely at that time.
So if we take you from about 14 onwards, when did you I know you're a recovering addict. Was that an
Mhm.
addict of drugs or drink or what?
I got a dual problem. It's alcohol and drugs,
And and what drugs?
crystal meth.
Crystal meth.
I was addicted
So
to crystal
how
meth,
old were
and
you? How old were you when you started that?
I was 16.
Right. Can you pinpoint, if you just go back and think about how you were at 16, I think this is important for people watching this. What was it that made you drink too much and take crystal meth?
I could say I was quite a good girl. Was doing well at school. I was always in the top in the class and in our grade at school. So I had a lot of trust from my mother. But my mother being a single parent, I think that played a role in the sense of I had to figure a lot of things out on my own. And I can say now only that one of the things that I did not have was a connection with somebody, with anybody. I remember I always felt not being understood, and I even had feelings of being a disappointment. I was an overachiever. I was an overachiever in my sports, academically. Yet I had this feeling of I need to always do more. And
So
I
you,
have
yeah, go on, go
and
on.
my sister and I, we closely aged. We're 2.5 years apart. But at that time, I did not understand that um we needed each other. So I came from a very, I would say, a very healthy home. Yet I did not know how to make a proper connection. And I think it's got to do with me changing schools all the time and not keeping a friendship more than a year or two.
So the proper connection you talk about is really opening yourself up to new people and allowing them
Yes.
to come close to you. But you weren't good at that.
No, I wasn't.
No.
I don't even think I was aware of that.
No. Well,
Uh,
well, often we're not. I mean, at 16, it's another, and you'd moved so much. So there you were at 16. You weren't making connections with new people, and you must have felt very lonely. So is that a contributing factor to the drugs and drink?
Most definitely the loneliness, yes.
Mm.
I did make a friend, um, and even now thinking back on that friendship, there's still a lot of love in my heart, an actual emotion, strong emotion that I feel for this friend. She was, how can I say, she was unlike any other friend that I had. Unfortunately, she was on substance, and I had made a connection with somebody that was on substance, and I did not know what addiction was, what it looked like, what it felt like, what the experience was like at the time. And she was going through it, and I'm talking about, we were best friends. We would spend weekends together, after school, before school, we would be together, and it was almost like us against the world.
Taryn, how much were you taking in terms of crystal meth and alcohol? Did you go onto huge amounts very quickly, or did it build up?
It built up. It built up. I think the alcohol was quicker than the substance, the illicit substance. The alcohol, I guess, because um here when you look outside, society is like it's okay to be drunk. It's okay to be stumbling over yourself and black out because it's not illegal, right? So alcohol was readily available for me, and I think the alcohol I was consuming far more than the crystal meth.
Did your mother know about this?
No, she did not.
No, so you kept it
No.
hidden.
I kept it well hidden, I think, yes.
Yes, well, in fact, that's one of the things addicts manage to do. They're in denial, well, partly in denial, and they hide their addiction very well.
Yes.
But the time came when you obviously had reached a point when you'd had to go on the streets to live. Now that must have been a horrendous move for somebody. You paint yourself as a bit of a perfectionist when you were a child. You wanted to be best at everything, good at, and suddenly there you were, addicted, though you might not have quite realised that. But there you were on the streets, sleeping and living.
I think there were a lot of factors that led to me being on the streets. It wasn't just the substance. It was the fact that I couldn't hold a job, and it was also I was in an abusive relationship at the time. Leaving my home at that time was one of the most difficult decisions that I had to make. Weirdly enough, I knew all the time that I had to leave the home I was living in order to get to stop using drugs and to stop drinking and to heal. I had to leave that home. It wasn't easy because not having a fixed address or having to share a space with people all the time, different personalities, and I mean, share showers all the time in the different shelters that I was in. I used to feel as if I was a burden whenever I knocked at somebody's door because I was hungry. I used to feel as if I was a burden when I had to get a hold of somebody to even call my daughter. So it was the hardest decision that I had to make, but I knew all the time that I had to do this in order to heal.
Sure, and you went on to heal, which we'll come to. When did you have your daughter?
I had my daughter in 2010.
Right.
So
So go on.
so
You
in
were.
that time I was I was so what we would call happy, and I wasn't living at home anymore. So I was also very sheltered. I could hold a job down at the time. So in that time, yeah, I was fairly how can I say normal.
Did you feel you still had a problem, or were you happy as you were?
I didn't think I had a problem. Just before I fell pregnant, my daughter's father had caught me out, and it broke his heart so much that I just stopped using. Don't ask me how I did it. I just stopped using, and it was a blessing in disguise because at that time I was pregnant already.
Okay, and you were on the streets at this point, yeah?
No, I was not yet on the
N-
streets at this
You
point.
hadn't got to the streets by then?
No, no, I wasn't.
No. Just take us through what happened to take you to the where you were living on the streets.
In complete unhappiness. I was fired from my last job because of drinking. Um, I stole from the workplace. I was caught out, and then I was dismissed. Um, about 5 months later, I the worry and the loneliness and just the lack of routine that I had no routine, and my mind would go to how am I going to pay for how do I afford rent, food, school fees, how do I get my child to school, even those worries started plaguing me for about 6 months, and then I gave in to the addiction completely, utterly and completely. When COVID hit, it was difficult for me to find work, so I was doing odd jobs at that time. COVID, I mean, who would have thought a global pandemic would happen? So about 2020, 2021, I was completely lonely. I was broken inside. Spiritually, I was broken. Physically, I was sick all the time. And I was always fighting at home with my partner at the time. Um the landlord had a problem with me. We were facing eviction because life is just simply too expensive. And I believe everybody in the household should work, and I wasn't working. So we were facing eviction. We were always fighting. We were always blaming each other. There was swearing. There was hitting. There was chasing each other. And eventually I had to leave that situation. And I thought that by leaving the situation, leaving the home, everything would just magically be fixed. So when I left at home, I had nowhere to go. I took a bag of clothes. It's like a little brown bag that can fit two pants in and a couple of t-shirts. And I took my daughter to my mother. Once I'd left my mother's home because I was totally addicted, I couldn't stay. I couldn't live with her. I started worrying. So what I would do is I would be walking around the entire day. I would visit people. I would wash by one friend's house, and I would go eat at another friend's house, and then I would stay late at another person's house. So that I would have a place to sleep for the evening. And it went
Yes.
on for about 3 weeks. But I think the worst part for me in that period was that every morning I would wake up about 6 o'clock, and I would worry at 6 o'clock in the morning, where would I be sleeping tonight? Where would I be
Mm.
going tonight?
People, I must say, in Britain and Australia, and they call it sofa surfing, and they just wonder if they're ever going to find a sofa for that night before somebody chucks them out. And it's a real worry because, like you say, they just don't know, and you didn't know, did you?
No, I didn't know. I actually didn't know it had a name like that. Um, Eventually we ran out of resources, we ran out of friends. People start putting down boundaries and basically letting us know where we stand. And then it's late night walks. I mean, the longest I walked at night was for about 3 hours, till eventually I bumped into somebody that I knew, about 3.5 hours. And there would be times that I would go and visit people on very unsavory places, and I would literally be sitting up and sleeping so that they don't ask me what I'm still doing there in their home. Yeah, it was just for measure of safety, and also because of the weather. A lot of this happened around May, three years ago. So it was quite chilly that time of the year, but wet. So all I was thinking about, I wasn't thinking about food. I was totally in survival mode. I was just thinking about, where will I be sleeping tonight that I am safe?
Yeah, I understand that. And just to be clear, at this point, were you still using and drinking or not?
Yes, yes, I
You were.
was. I
No,
was,
so
yes.
I call it landing up on the streets. Perhaps you could just describe what that was like for you, because people say you see people all over the world sitting in doorways, sometimes with a dog who they managed to get some money for, or drugs. But they look, people look ill and tired and hopeless. And I guess that breeds itself. If you're on the streets, you feel hopeless.
Mm. You feel, I don't know how to explain this, but when I used to close my eyes, when I used to close my eyes and I don't know which way to go, I'll be sitting maybe on a taxi rank or in a park, and I close my eyes and do not see anything for the future for myself. I can't even picture myself in the future. Um, that is what I was feeling at the time. I don't know if anybody could see that hopelessness, and it made me panic. It's happened a few times. It made me panic.
Well, that's why we called it, Here to Talk, the one-stop shop for getting unstuck. And you were truly stuck at that point. And it may be that people watching this, either themselves or know somebody who are stuck because you were stuck. You didn't know how to get out of this situation, did you?
No, I did not. I was like I said, I was surviving. So not only could I not get myself out of the situation, I did not think that it was possible. I thought this life is normal for me and I should just get used to it. I should just suck it up. I just should get used to the heartbreak. I should get used to the pain. I should get used to not having a goal or a dream for myself, because I believed I just would not achieve it.
What were the people like you met on the streets, all in the same state as you? They were using, somehow they'd find the money to use and take alcohol. Did you ever make a friend on the streets?
Yes, yes, I did. I still think of her fondly. But not I to me, not everybody was the same. There were some that, we are all different. So there are some that kept a very positive mind, but I think they've come to that part of, I'm not sure of acceptance. And I used to get quite jealous of that. How can you have so much faith that um you will have something to eat tonight? How can you believe that you'll find something? We used to do what we call we call it minding the side. So it's when dirt day comes around, we have these wheelie bins, and we would be scratching in the wheelie bins. And the people that I was surrounded with that time would just be positive enough that they would find something of value in these bins that they would be able to sell and would sustain us for the day.
Right. Were there people stealing off you? I guess you didn't have a lot they could take at that point.
Yes, when you are homeless, anything that you have is of value. It may not be worth a lot of money, but it is of value. Um, I had to live light. I lost a lot from hopping from place to place. I would leave a bag of clothes from my auntie's house, and I'll leave a bag of clothes by another auntie's house, and that is how I would eventually lose things. So it would be stuff like papers, I had my high school certificate, important papers that I needed. I would eventually lose those things. Then it would be a simple thing like leaving a bag of toiletries at a friend's house, because when you have to walk from place to place, and there are times I would have to walk for hours, I wouldn't be able to take a lot of things with me in a backpack, for example. So I would lose even my toiletries would
Yeah.
be stolen
How,
from me.
so how long did this go on for? How long were you in this situation on the streets?
It was less than 6 months. I
6
then
months.
got Yes, I then got into a shelter, which then lasted another 3.5 years.
Okay, who gave you the shelter? Where did that come from?
Walk past a sign that says the Haven, and it was an arrow pointing the direction into the road. And eventually, I went to go and ring their bell and ask them about a place to stay and tell them that I have nowhere to go.
You see, the story you tell shows somebody who's very determined and very courageous, because from this awful situation, you did come out of it. And I think that's the bit we'd all like to know how that happened.
Wow. Wow. So when I was at the Haven the first time, I experienced peace. And when I speak about peace, I'm not talking about being comfortable, but not having to worry about where I'm going to sleep at night. So I was still using, I was still very much addicted. And but I was calm during the day because I knew I had a place to go to at night. While I was staying there about 3 months into my stay at the Haven, the social worker sends me a note to say that I haven't made a move to use any of the social services, and that a shelter is not accommodation. They're there to help people. I wasn't taking the help. So at that time, I was still very, very stuck. And she gave me an ultimatum via letter saying, in order to qualify for an extension to stay there, I have to then go to an outpatient rehab facility, which I didn't go to. So I left the Haven, um, and then I was couch hopping again for about 3 weeks. And then I decided to go back, and I apologized to this social worker, and then she decided to help me to get me into another Haven, because I couldn't stay there again. At the other Haven that was in Cork Bay, there was a lady, another social worker, who then suggested that I come to U-Turn. I was very skeptical because I wanted to change, but I was very scared. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think I could do it. I've spoken to others that were still on the journey of being in a program, but I didn't think I had the strength to go on. So I moved in the next day, and the day after that was my first day at U-Turn. And what I can say is, although I didn't know it was possible for me to change, I just kept going back. I didn't give myself a choice to stay. I didn't want to have to explain to another social worker or receive another ultimatum about the roof over my head. And I decided to stay at U-Turn. And while I was there in the first month, there was a topic on recovery. And what I didn't know was that recovery wasn't just being clean off the drugs. It was changing so that I can stay clean. Something just stuck in that moment that told me that, you know what? I told myself, Taran, you're already in so much pain.
So it sounds to me as if social workers were a help, and in many countries you wouldn't even get social workers involved. So take us on what happened then.
Well, I actually didn't exactly know what a social worker does at that time. For me, they were just those people that sit and help people at shelters. So when I came to U-Turn, the guy that helped me there was a social auxiliary worker. He was the one that introduced me to the word recovery, that I need to stop using, I need to abstain, but that's only the first step, and they will help me with the change. And they they brought up every aspect of my life. They brought up my employment history, my family, my daughter, my different relationships. And it took a couple of weeks, but every time we would speak, there would be a goal that would be reached. That one day he would say, "Okay, would you like to speak to your mother again, or would you like that family reunification?" So it was more than just about um working, staying clean and just working. It was a whole healing journey for
Yes.
me.
But that's quite demanding. Did you ever think to yourself, I'm going to go back on the streets because I don't want all this stuff really, and I don't want to answer all these questions about my family and my life and my employment, because I know a lot of people on the streets don't want to come off the streets.
I think it's just easier not to have all that structure and all that rules. There were times where I felt it was unfair that for example, we have a curfew at the shelter, so I couldn't work weekends because the work that I did at that time would make that I would arrive at the shelter at 9 o'clock, and that would. I mean, I was thinking to myself, how do I afford toiletries? How do I afford something nice for myself if I can't work? So it felt almost like all that structure that was put in place to help me was a hindrance for me to be free. So I didn't recognize those. I mean, it comes across as rules. So when I heard the rules, still being addicted, hearing the word rules was as if I don't do something, then I will be in trouble. Or if it's almost like you're not allowed to do this, and I still had that attitude of, but you're not going to tell me how to do anything. And when you're on the street, or when you're just living a life of I would say darkness, I get to make the rules. And that's the problem. I needed the rules. I needed the structure. I needed the guidance, because there is nothing like that around. Everybody just agrees with you if you come up with a plan, no matter how illegal or dangerous that plan is.
Did you at any stage feel a sense of guilt about your child?
I'm going to be honest. No, not in the beginning. Near the end of my addiction, that was one of the drivers of change for me. I don't believe that I'm a bad person, but I do believe one of the factors that made me um, feel less for anyone or anything other than my drug and other than my survival was pain. I
Pain.
just didn't want pain, yes. I just didn't want to feel anymore. So, no, I did not feel guilty at that time.
And the pain would be a form of hatred of yourself, depression, anxiety, all those things. That's what you call pain, is it?
Heartbreak. When I'm talking about the heartbreak, we always associate heartbreak with a romantic relationship. But to break my own heart, to disappoint myself, is one of the worst things that I've ever experienced. And not being able to switch off those feelings is it's frustrating. I mean, nobody can switch off their feelings, but to be in a constant state of total and complete heartbreak, that I caused for myself, was I don't want to experience that again.
Well, I think you're amazing. In the end, you became, I mean, you went on and you joined the U-Turn program. U-Turn's a wonderful organization which helps people like you were to get better. And you became a recovery coach. So you now are trying to help people who are stuck still.
Yes, it is finding purpose. Chrissy, didn't happen immediately. I had to first work on myself. Becoming unstuck is not always just finding that thing that makes you happy. For me, it was healing the insides of me. Mending my heart, forgiving myself, forgiving others. It is still a process that I'm still going through. I think it's going to be a lifelong process, but it gets easier. And having a purpose keeps me grounded. Having a
Yes.
purpose makes me very vigilant to if I should regress or if change is necessary. I am able now more to be able to recognize that, as in the past I would be doing the same thing over and over, and the negative feelings and emotions would be so familiar to me, and I would always be asking myself, why is this happening to me again? But I haven't been asking that um once I've realized my purpose.
Well, it was amazing that period of your life when you actually decided to make that change. Um, and a lot of people would say very courageous, actually. But AA has an expression in England, probably here too. You've got people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's a good
Yes.
expression. It sounds
Yes,
like
it
you were
is.
sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes, I
Oh,
was. And
yeah,
I was
yeah.
sick of being tired also. Yes, I'm aware of that expression. I also go to AA.
Yes. So life really improved, uh, and you came to love yourself a bit more, a lot. You like yourself now?
Yes, I like myself now. I've got a healthy amount of love for myself now.
Very important, isn't it? And
Yes, it
I think
is.
you'd say to anyone perhaps watching this who has got stuck with addiction or homelessness that perhaps the bit that's missing is the love of self, that somehow you have to find that, you have to get that back if you ever had it, or find it somewhere.
Yes, I would also say that while trying to forgive myself, because it started with that, like I told you, I never felt guilty. So when the guilt finally came, it washed over me heavily. And this happened to me while I was in recovery. So for some reason, I was strong enough not to go back to the streets. I was strong enough not to go back to my drug of choice. Um, but I think it started when I started forgiving myself and when I started having compassion for myself, when I became aware that I would easily forgive somebody else for making that same mistake I made, but I would be harder on myself. I also now see challenges as a refinery process for me. Nothing that I've gone through has been for nil. So all the darkness, all the begging for money and asking for donations and stuff like that hasn't gone for nothing, because now I can relate to others. I used to believe, I think the loneliness that came from homelessness and from addiction was that nobody understands me. And now
Yeah.
sitting on this side, I see, well, there are thousands out there that is going through exactly the same thing, if not worse.
Yes. And I really feel what you said today may give people hope, if only because, I don't know, they'll play it to their children who may be on the streets, or, whatever the circumstance is, it's amazing how you just come across something like we're talking about, and it can change people or give them the courage to change things like you did. Taran, I'm so pleased about your life, and you're married happily.
Happily married to an amazing man. He's a very good husband to me.
That's great. And you've
Yeah.
got a good relationship with your daughter now?
I have a very good relationship with my daughter. I think it's also because my mother is with me in my recovery. She asks questions, and that was one of the things that helped this journey on, is that um I am open to speak, I'm open to be vulnerable to the right people who needs to know where I am at. I no longer walk with the idea that nobody cares, because I've noticed that when that thought used to come, "Oh, well, nobody cares for me," I realized, but nobody knows what I'm going through. So when they speak to me, I'm always telling them, but I'm fine when I'm not fine. So when I am not fine, I tell my mother, today I'm not feeling well, but I will be okay.
Yeah. And she knows that you will now. You
She
won't
knows
slip
that I
back.
will.
Yeah.
I don't
It's a
ever want
wonderful
to.
It's a wonderful story, Taran. Thank you very much for talking to me. I'm sure it will help some people somewhere. Who knows? It's going to go across the world. Who knows? But thank you very much. May you go on having a very happy life. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissie. Thank you.